Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Science for Everyone. Today I will discuss a topic that is related to immunology, and the title of my today's lecture is inflammation. In this video lecture, I will discuss that what really inflammation is, what is basically the mechanism that is behind inflammation, and what are the symptoms of inflammation, and either inflammation is giving an advantage to us or not. Okay, so these all I will discuss in today's lecture. So stay tuned with this video and watch the video till end, because I will discuss each and every step in detail, and I am pretty sure that all the confusion that are faced by the students related to inflammation will be solved by this video lecture. Okay, so let's start with the video lecture. Okay, first of all, I want to show you that in our childhood, mostly we fell down and we injured ourselves. Mostly our knees are injured. So this is also a type of inflammation. Basically, what is inflammation? Inflammation means redness, or in simple terms, when our certain body parts get red and it swells, so we say that this body part is inflamed. Okay, but the actual definition of inflammation is that the our immunity, when we get injured by something, so our immunity starts playing a role against the microorganism or against the cut they have that is caused to us. Okay, so all our immune cells that are playing role in preventing us from different diseases when through the cut the microorganism enter our body, so they are killed by those microorganisms are killed on that site. Okay, so just because of the action of our immune cells, our body get inflammation processes is conducted. Okay, so that is basically known as inflammation. But in our terms, if we saw a certain body part where there is physically we saw that it is red and it is a bit warmer, and the it is a bit there is a swelling, so we say that here is inflammation. But basically inflammation is the action of the immune cells that are performing different activities against the microorganism. So when they are performing that activities, so they are giving some physical appearance to the skin. Okay, so that area, then we call it that it is inflamed. So in this video lecture, I will go to the internal mechanism of the inflammation. We see this type of this type of scar physically, but what happens inside it? Okay, this is our today's lecture concern. Okay, so just look here, this body part is inflamed. Look here, this is a small swelling is there, and mostly just look here to this skin, it is white in color, but here is a bit redness. Okay, and if you touch this part, so here it would be a bit warmer. Okay, here if the body temperature is 37 degrees centigrade, the skin temperature, so here it will be a bit 38. Okay, so why this happens? And this is all just because of the action of the immune cells. Okay, and the process that is conducted inside it. Okay, so I will discuss the internal process. Okay, that what happens inside it. Okay, so this is the a typical diagram. I have chosen it because it is a bit simple and easier to understand. If we look here, this is an overview, this diagram. Okay, this is of, if I write one. Okay, so this is the entire inflammation process. Okay, and after that this diagram, and later on I will show you another diagram. So these are also part of inflammation, but basically this is an overview of inflammation. If I start from here, so for example, if we get hurt and as a foreign substance get entered to our body. Okay, through our skin, So what happens, there are microorganism on that part. So the microorganism, for example bacteria, enters our body. Okay, so this is our skin. Basically this is the skin and these are the tissues. Okay, these are the tissues, and this is the capillary. This is blood capillary. First understand the basic structures. This is the blood capillary. Okay, and these are the endothelial cells. Okay, from which the blood capillary is formed. And after that this is the internal space. Okay, and these are very much micrometer, very small. The diameter of these are very much small, but this is an enlarged picture. Okay, and these are tissues. Okay, for example these are endodermal tissues or a certain other type of tissue, but here we will consider is an endodermal tissues. Okay, skin tissues. So these are the tissues and these are the capillaries. First remember this. Okay, now if something get enters our skin. Okay, if we are hurt by something, or a small stick that get enters into our skin through different accidents. So what happens, there are bacteria in the environment, or there are also certain bacteria on our skin, and mostly the substance that get enters our skin is also contaminated. So what happens, the bacteria get enters through our skin and it enters our tissues. So just look here, when the our skin cells get injured, because when the foreign substance get is injected into our skin, so the skin cells get injured and mostly they get burst. Okay, because of the action of the substance. So and they die. So what happens when the skin cell dies, so they releases different inflammatory chemicals. Okay, because there are different chemicals. I will discuss those chemicals in detail, but first remember that if our cell dies, so there are different type of enzymes, there are different type of proteins, for example bradykinin proteins. Okay, and in our skin cells there are mast cells also. Okay, there are high content of mast cell, and when mast cell bursts, so histamine, it is also an inflammatory chemical, it is also produced. Okay, so these all are inflammatory chemicals, and mostly the inflammatory chemicals can also be produced by the microorganisms. Okay, so our skin cells are also, when they get lies, they died, so they also produce inflammatory chemicals. The bacteria that get enters our body also produces inflammatory chemicals, and the mast cells that are present in our body tissues, in our skin tissues in high amount, so they also produces different inflammatory chemicals. So just because of that inflammatory chemicals, what happens with the action of that inflammatory chemicals, they act upon the capillary walls. Okay, so they act upon the capillary walls, and what happens basically, just because of the action of these chemicals, the endothelial cells give a space. Okay, they are for example, if they are completely packed together just like this. Okay, and there is no space together in between them. So with the help of and with the action of these inflammatory chemicals, there is a certain space is produced in between these endothelial cells. Okay, so just because of it, there is an introduction of bacteria. So what happens, the neutrophils, and the neutrophils are the, keep this thing in mind, that neutrophils are also phagocytes, but these are microphagocytes, means, and these are the fastest to encounter microorganism. If someone asks you that when you are get injured, so which immune cells are the first to encounter your that bacteria that get enters your body, so your answer will be the neutrophils. Okay, neutrophils are the fastest immune cells, and these are also known as microphagocyte. So neutrophils are the first immune cells that encounter the bacteria. So, and the neutrophils are roaming around in the blood cells or in the blood capillaries. So when the inflammatory chemicals starts its action and spaces are produced in between the endothelial cell, so the neutrophils that are roaming around in the blood capillaries, they enter these spaces and encounter these bacteria. How they encounter these bacteria and how they enter these spaces, it is another process. I will now show you that how it get enters the blood capillaries. Okay, so just look here. It is a simple diagram about it. Okay, so for example, now here the with the action of the inflammatory chemicals, what happens that on the endothelial cell, on the wall of the endothelial cell, there are special proteins. Okay, there are special protein. These blue color are the special protein, and these are known as selectins. Okay, if I write S, okay, so keep this thing in mind. These are known as selectins, and these selectin proteins are present on the walls of the endothelial cell. Okay, on the walls of endothelial capillaries. Okay, so what happens that selectins are present, and they are on the surface of the neutrophils. On the surface of the neutrophils, there are adhesion molecules, and these adhesion molecules are collectively known as integrin. Okay, these all are adhesion molecule. So if I write I, so these are known as integrin. So again, I'm saying that this blue color is known as selectin, and these yellow color are known as integrin. So what happens when by the action of inflammatory chemicals, the selectin proteins are activated, and when the neutrophils are passing by, so what happens, the activated selectins bind with the integrin proteins that are present on the neutrophil. So by binding, this is the binding. Okay, just look here, this is the binding, and this is the binding in between the selectin and the integrin. So when they bind together, so what really happens when they bind together, so the neutrophils are captured by the endothelial cells. Okay, and after that they are by the action of inflammatory chemicals, different spaces are formed in between the endothelial cell. So what happens, so by the action of these inflammatory chemicals, these neutrophils are captured, and after these neutrophils passes through the gaps in between these passes through the gap in between the endothelial cell and enter the tissue spaces where the bacteria and the other microorganisms are present, and they start phagocytosis. Okay, and they start eating those microorganisms. So these are the steps. Okay, these are again, if I repeat, so the selectin proteins bind with the integrins, and with the binding of the integrins with the selectin, these are most of them neutrophils are captured, and after that these are then passed through the inner wall, and these enter to the tissue spaces where the microorganisms are present, and after that what happens, they eat those microorganisms. Okay, so this is the process of the neutrophils when they enter the tissue spaces. So just look here, when the neutrophils get attached to the endothelial wall, so this is known as margination, and when they start entering the tissue spaces, the spaces in between the endothelial cells, so this is known as diapeptidesis. Okay, and when they enter the tissue spaces and start traveling to the bacteria, so this is known as extravasion. Okay, margination, diapeptidesis, and margination, these are the three processes. So keep these three names in your mind. Margination means when the neutrophils are attached to the endothelial cells, and the diaptedesis means when they start when they are changing their shape and start entering the spaces in between the endothelial cell, and the extravasion is the when they travel to the bacteria, okay, and start engulfing it. So this traveling is known as extravasion, okay. If I write here E, so it is known as extravasion, okay. So this was all about the first step of the inflammation. And one thing I want to tell you guys, that when just because and with the help by the action of these inflammatory chemicals, the diameter of the capillaries dilate, okay. Where, for example, when inflammation was not caused, so for example the diameter of capillaries was if we suppose we it was, for example, 5 meter, okay, it is 5 micrometer, but I'm just willing to understand you people. So if, for example, it was 5 meter, so after inflammation, what happens, the diameter of the capillary should be, for example, 7 meter, and it is not meter, it is micrometer and nanometer. But I just want to make you understand, okay. So just because of the dilation of the capillaries, so the blood flow and the blood flow is increased to that area, and many neutrophils and other immune cells starts reaching that place. So just because of it, the dilation of the capillaries, when the capillaries are dilated, so most of the blood enters that area. So what happens, that area then look red, and it is a bit warmer because the blood the temperature of the blood is 37 degrees centigrade. So when it enters the tissue spaces, so then that area get warmer, okay. And this is all just because of the inflammatory chemicals, okay. Now the last is that there is also swelling, okay. There is also swelling and pain, okay. So why does this swelling and pain occur? So this is just because when the inflammatory chemicals, by the action of inflammatory chemicals, there is certain spaces are created in between the endothelial cells, okay. So the most of the blood enters that area, okay. Most of the blood enter that area, and also other type of fluid also enter that area. So just because of it, there is swelling. Swelling means that that area got a bit larger, okay. And this is just because of the high content of blood and other body fluids, okay, and other body fluid. So that area got inflamed and swell up, and this is just because of the blood and the body fluids, okay. And this why this happens, because there are certain spaces are created, okay. So the blood and the fluid can easily enter these spaces, okay. So just because of it, swelling occurs. Now why pain occurs? Pain occurs because by the action of the inflammatory chemicals, those inflammatory chemicals, for example, when in our blood there is a special type of protein, okay. There is a special type of protein that is known as kallikrein. So by the action of inflammatory chemicals, these kallikrein proteins are cleaved into bradykinin, and bradykinin is a special type of fatty acid, or for example it is a type of, it is not a protein, it is a type of fatty acid. So what happens, this bradykinin also this bradykinin, what does it do? It binds to the mast cell, okay. So by binding to the mast cell, the mast cell produces histamine, okay. So bradykinin is also a type of inflammatory chemical. And another function bradykinin do, it binds to the nerve ends, okay. It binds to the nerve ends that is present in that area. By binding to the nerve ends, it creates pressure on that nerve, and by creating pressure on that nerve, it produces a feeling of pain, okay. By the binding of bradykinin to the nerve that are present in that area, so they create pressure on that nerve, and when this nerve is pressurized, so a pain is produced. So mostly when there is swelling, so there will be pain. Okay, if there is swelling, so there will be pain, there will be redness, and the area will be warm. Okay, so this is all about the mechanism of inflammation. All start with a simple cut, and after that when the bacteria enters, so and this is all just because to kill that bacteria. So an environment is produced by the immune cells. Okay, just because the environment get acidic, because the cells contain hydrolytic enzyme, so when they are released to the environment, so it gets acidic. Okay, so just because of it, we also feel a sore feeling. Okay, so when it is acidic, so bacteria can be killed by that acidic condition. And when and just because of the action of the inflammatory chemicals, different immune cells can enter those spaces, so they can easily kill that bacteria. And mostly not only the neutrophils get entry. After that, when the condition gets worse, so macrophages and other immune cells can also enter these spaces and kill the bacteria. So this was all about that. It is creating an environment against the bacteria. So if there is swelling, so you should know that now the killing of bacteria is started. Okay, so swelling is a bit it is giving advantage to us. Okay, so this is all about the swelling. If we proceed a little bit further, so at the last I want to show you that these are simple points, that the increase in blood flow, as I have mentioned in the video, in the previous video, that there is an increased blood flow, and this is just because of the dilation of the capillary. And when so the area the increase in blood flow and capillary dilation bring into the area more antimicrobial factors. Okay, and leukocyte, as I have mentioned, when more blood is circulated in that area, so more immune cells will come and will fight against the microbe. And blood leakage into the tissue spaces increases the temperature and further stimulate the inflammatory response. Okay, and may inhibit microbial growth. So it also increases the temperature, and microorganism is showing sensitivity to temperature. So a slight increase in temperature can kill those microorganisms. Okay, and there are proteins that are known as fibrinogens that are present in our body, in our blood. So after that, just to cover just to stop the blood flow, what happens from the cut? So what happens? The fibrinogen protein create a fibrin clot, and the cut that is produced by that wooden stick or knife, it is stopped. Okay, and at last that the phagocytes collect in the inflamed area, and phagocytose the pathogen. Okay, the neutrophil, the phagocyte, what they do, they kill the microorganism by by eating them and killing them. Okay, and the inflammatory chemicals can also stimulate the bone marrow to release more and more neutrophils. Okay, so by the action of the inflammatory chemical, it can give a signal to the bone marrow to produce more and more neutrophils and other immune cells and even the blood cells. Okay, so this was all about the immune system. Okay, sorry, the inflammation. If you have any further question related to inflammation, so you can ask me in the comment box. It was a simple overview, and I want to tell you guys that this is acute inflammation. Okay, acute inflammation means this video was about acute inflammation, the very starting point of the inflammation. For example, if you are hurt and directly the inflammation starts, so this is acute inflammation. And another type of inflammation is chronic inflammation, so then it is another topic for me to discuss. So it is acute inflammation that it directly starts its action. Okay, so if you have understand this video, so like this video, share it with your friend, and subscribe to my channel for more interesting videos related to science. Thank you very